Well, Liam, you're not going to have to wait for long. Welcome, everyone. It is a rarity nowadays. In fact, I don't necessarily think we've done a Raw watch-along for many, many moons and many, many years. And yet here we are. With the rarity that we have Raw right there. I might actually move it slightly that way, but for now, that's where it is. So I'll spend a lot of time looking like this, just so everyone's aware of the old watch-along. We will still have elements of spoiler warning. It will certainly not be the same as a typical good old-fashioned spoiler warning, but we will certainly still have elements of spoiler warning, talking about news, reacting to whatever you guys want to talk about. But of course, we're actually going to be watching Monday Night Raw, which tonight will be opened by Roman Reigns in the city of Birmingham, UK. Now, you will note I said Birmingham, not Birmingham. Y'all are weird. Birmingham, Alabama, Birmingham, UK, not the same thing. Birmingham. You have to give up the word halfway through. Birmingham. I was born in a place called Hull, but you don't say Hull, you say Hull. You give up on the word before it even starts. In the UK, this is what we do. We give up before we begin. And today, we'll be giving up using the awesome power of good old-fashioned WWE Raw. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I do, in fact, also have a feed of a football game currently on my screen. So I'm multitasking, but to be fair, so are you. You're watching this and also watching WWE Raw. There's a few things we are going to be doing during this show. I'm going to be keeping a rough eye on TikTok, for example, looking for certain viral clips as and when they hopefully should appear. But there's plenty more that we'll be discussing as time goes on. Because, as you know, this is a well-varied stream. Much as WWE Raw at the moment is fairly well-varied. And I do think, for a rarity and a rare time, the superior show. Cody's got a difficult job dragging SmackDown forwards when you've got Seth Rollins, CM Punk, LA Knight, Jey Uso, Roman Reigns. Raw is just overall stronger. I want to say hi to everyone who's joined us so far. We have Bailey, we have Marcel, welcome Liam as well, says can't wait for Raw. Colohue on our screens, so blessed. Joey says hi Tom, hey Tom, this is an early stream. It is, we're actually doing a Raw watch party because it's a rarity when we actually can do that. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Bailey quite rightly pointing out, Edinburgh is Edinburgh, not Edinburgh. I still fall for that sometimes. And every now and then I still say Glasgow. Ed says, a watch along for weekly TV, glorious, sublime. Sublime. Oh, it's already all kicking off in Liverpool versus Newcastle. Kevin says, too many Raw matches on Clash at Paris, only one SmackDown match. Hopefully they can balance out, but as mentioned, I do think Raw is by far the superior show now. By far the superior show. And it's honestly quite upsetting how big a difference it is. So we do seem to be building towards, and I can see it's in the recap, Bronson Reed versus Roman Reigns. They're going to be nervous about potentially doing that in Australia. They need to avoid that as much as they can because people will not cheer for Roman. But Clash in Paris seems the perfect time. What's this feud about? Shoes. Watch for the shoe. I don't really know what to tell you beyond that. It's very confusing that this even exists. But yeah, we have a feud about shoes. I just saw Ref Cam on the football. He's mic'd up as well. The world is in a strange place. So Bron Breakker will take on LA Knight tonight. Despite carrying a knee knock, Bron Breakker's incredibly busy. Rhea Ripley will take on Roxanne Perez. Roxanne Perez, again, someone who's basically doing everything. At the minute, we have a number of people who are... That's pretty glamorous from Nikki Bella. We have a number of people who are really carrying the shows in a very real way. They are wrestling week in, week out. For a while, Jey Uso was one of these. He's a bit less now. They're cutting promos in multiple segments. Think Seth Rollins. WWE is massively reducing their overheads by massively reducing the amount of staff that they have. And also, can I just say, this is way too much Travis Scott, but this was part of the deal to say goodbye to Travis Scott. You see, here's a bit of spoiler warning for you. WWE had offered Travis Scott not only a great package, but a great marketing campaign involving a hell of a lot of money. And now, because he's no longer involved with the company, they still have to do certain things in order to make sure he's satisfied. Fun, isn't it? Roman Reigns opens the show. The last time I was at a WWE show in the UK, Roman Reigns was feuding with Baron Corbin. It was the infamous dog bags feud. Yeah. The whole dog food. It was bad. It was bad. I would have loved to see this Roman Reigns. I really would have. So far we have 18 people here, which for a show at a completely different time is actually pretty good. Welcome everyone, thank you for tuning in. We have 7 likes as well. If we can keep those going, that would be great. Liam says they're definitely having Roman open the show so he can have the pop he had last time in the UK with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns. Hello Sean, good to see you. Kevin says, would you rather lose all of your past memories or never be able to make new ones? Okay, so this is interesting because there's a natural difficulty to this. I did have a 25-year-long period of depression, which I'd like to get rid of, but also the last 4 years have been pretty fucking incredible. And I don't want to lose them. But I also know that where I am right now, I could have a very bright future. It's a very good question, Kevin. Not one I've considered, but I think I'd lose the past ones. Roman is already being serenaded by the crowd. They can't find a way to make it match up with the music. UK crowds are fantastic. I'm going to enjoy this. Sean said, did you see Ash by Elegance dethroning JC of the Knockouts title? I wanted it to be indie. WWE did not want it to be indie, which is interesting because they did want it to be one of their former employees, but they didn't want it to be another one of their former employees. Funny how the world works. Joey says, do you think we get 7 matches at Clash? It is starting to look that way, is it? It is starting to look that way. Juan says, hey Tom, is there a lot of news that you have? Not a huge amount. We will still go through news. I'm planning in the commercial breaks to have a look at recent news headlines and give my reactions to them to try and still give you plenty of actual spoiler warning. And hopefully we're able to do that in a way that you enjoy. It says, I survived the ER and then a heat wave yesterday. Ed, why are you in the ER, mate? What's happened? What's going on? Talk to me. Don't worry me. Joey says, did you watch The Forbidden Door? I have not as of yet. I'd like to, but I feel like I'm not going to get round to it. Liam is also singing the Roman Reigns song. Hector says, how soon do you see it before Raw changes the theme music so they can completely rid themselves of Travis Scott? Unfortunately, I am expecting Travis Scott to still have some input in the WWE for about a year. Don't love it. Is what it is. Roman is still making his goddamn entrance. We are nearly 10 minutes in. There are people I swear I know there. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was my nephew. I'll have to think of a new colour for the nephew to fit the colour scheme I have in order to protect the anonymity of my family. Kevin says WWE need to save the Becky versus Nikki match for another pay-per-view because I want to see WWE showcase US champion Julia on Clash at Paris. Joey says, did Triple H see the online criticism to SmackDown recently? Yes and no. Triple H has a dedicated team who basically feed him what they think he needs to see. I doubt that was something that they felt he needed to see. Liam says, get a Mania to the UK, we deserve it, but we're not willing to pay for it. And that's why we're not getting it. There is no such thing as deserving it when it comes to business. Roman seems cheerful. Oh, I was not aware of Fork Spot one. I'll need to check that out. Guessing that's Forbidden Door. Sean says, do you know why the Speed titles are added to NXT now? Because the Speed contract has expired, but they've already created the championships, so they'd like to still have the champions. If you love Roman stand-up, fair play. That's a small arena. Are we missing like several sections? That is quite a small arena. You will note that Roman Reigns is standing up. He loves himself regularly. Why do I say things? Ed says, I'm all good now. Something stuck deep in my esophagus. Couldn't eat and drink for 12 to 16 hours. You need to look after yourself, mate. Holy shit. Glad to hear you're okay. Marcel says, I'm watching with college on the big screen. All of them watching WWE for the first time tonight. Roman, I'd imagine, has the appeal needed. I know my job. I'm acknowledging. Sean says, I thought Raw was in the O2. That's not a small arena, is it? There are multiple O2 arenas in the UK. So there may be some confusion there. Or just the lighting isn't great. That arena feels a little smaller. I don't know the context for what you're discussing, Bailey and Ed. I'm excited to find out. Sai, welcome, says Roman just took a 10-minute ovation then asked them to acknowledge him. Sai, thank you for being here. As always, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you very much for the overlay. I very much appreciate it. You've done me a solid as ever, and I appreciate your continued dedication to ensuring that I have the overlays to make this show pop. Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Ed used to log on quite a lot back in the days when I used to play Football Manager and Bloodborne. I actually kind of miss it, but I also have a family now and there's no chance of me ever being able to do that again. Hello, Erin. Good to see you. Says, I hope everyone's doing well today. Fair, Si. Fair. I'm going to... I'm going to create a post because I like to do that at the minute. Do you want to go raw? Do you want to go raw with me? We're live now, watching WWE Monday Night Raw. Join now. I think I need to start doing this, actually doing the posts when I'm live, but I don't know how well they're sent out. If I keep going with the posts, YouTube will start to push them. Just need to make it happen. The crowd don't seem to always be reacting to what Roman's saying. Roman took a moment there. I don't think he fully understands the accent. He's struggling. Oh, okay. Thank you, closed captions, who just let me know that they're saying F you, Rollins. Thank you, closed captions. Sean says, Kairi Sane versus Lyra Valkyria was on the main event tapings. Fair enough. These things happen. And Joey said, do you think Rusev beats Sheamus? Yes, I do, because otherwise what the hell was the point? The subtitles are actually pretty good in my experience on Netflix. Thank you, Ed. I'll have to check that out after the show. As I say, during commercial breaks, my plan is to check in on certain news, see what the major headlines are, react. If you, of course, have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them as best I can. We will not be having a traditional spoiler warning tonight. This will be our show. I feel like that's the first mention of the rematch clause in a long time. Sean says, do you think Rhea beats Roxanne or vice versa? I think Rhea comes out with a win, but I do think it is likely via disqualification because Raquel gets involved. I'm very interested in finding out what's going on here. Oh, Paul Heyman. One says, Cope, that's Adam Copeland, has hinted he will quote-unquote retire this year from AEW. Tom Colohue told us he might want that John Cena match. To be blunt, he does want that John Cena match. I think there's a world in which he lets his contract expire, takes on John Cena, one time only, and then goes back to AEW. Depends how much WWE are willing to pay him. They are literally building towards a one-on-one against Bronson Reed, aren't they? Roman has a train of thought, or a train of opponents lined up. Bronson Reed's there because, watch for the shoe. Bron Breaker's there because he's got the spear. Peaky Blinders is a very outdated reference, mate. He is a heel after all. Sorry, Shula Fowler is a ridiculous concept though. Like, he's stolen shoes. What world do we live in? Christopher Leclerc says, happy birthday to Bronson Reed. I missed that part. He looks very happy. Good old Jonah. Good guy. Genuinely a very good guy. Been engaged with him a couple of times. He's just a very good guy. Really good energy. Noob says, hello Mr. Colohue, how are you doing today? Doing well, thank you. First time I've been able to watch Raw live in a very long time. And Joey says, did Cena pitch Copeland to be his last opponent? No. Not the last. Paul Heyman mentioning Brock Lesnar. Now, Brock and Roman have historically been very close. I'm actually very interested to see Roman's reaction to Brock Lesnar's return. As I say, Brock and Roman have always been very close. Sean says, I heard WWE need to reshoot the Logan Paul punching John Cena segment because Logan missed John with the punch. Logan Paul's aim historically, let's just say there's more Shane McMahon than anyone else about Logan Paul. There's some similarities there. One says, if AEW potentially loses Chris Jericho, will AEW get the same collapse like with Punk and Cody? I don't expect so, no. Primarily because they've got a few more years behind them now. There wasn't necessarily a collapse when Cody left, there was a dip, but there was definitely a collapse when Punk left. What I would argue, though, is the collapse when Punk left is just the people who joined when Punk joined leaving again. So I would argue it wasn't necessarily a collapse in the same way. Now, that did put them in a difficult position. They've recovered well from that and they've improved. I would imagine now, because they've got a few more years behind them, a few more stars such as MJF, for example, they can now survive a few more hits like that. You see, they were bringing people in and they actually still only had a few people you'd call stars. Chris Jericho was one of them. Nowadays they have Will Ospreay, who I think is definitely star level. They have Hangman Page, who's reached that level. They naturally have Moxley, who they already have. There's a few people now who've made themselves stars using AEW. Tony Storm, as an example, as well. Van Dyke is very unhappy with the referee. Very unhappy. I agree, Bailey. MJF would be a greater loss than Jericho. And it does mean that there's a lot of cover. There's a lot of background. There's a lot of, if this doesn't work out, we can always do this. They can survive the loss of Chris Jericho. I would also argue they got no real gain from Edge. There was no noticeable addition, no noticeable spike in viewership from the arrival of Adam Copeland. And if they lose him, they've still got Christian, who at this point, I think it's worth saying, might have actually always been the better brother. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. Check it on your fathers. It says, I'd heard he didn't miss it, he just worked it too much for John's liking and he wanted to look more real. John Cena likes the punch. He's okay with taking the punch. Hector says, if Bronson Reed's a part of War Games this year, I'm hoping he doesn't do a crazy spot similar to last year. He will. He's a wrestler. And if there's one thing we can say for certain about all wrestlers, it's that they are absolutely insane. There is no sense of self-preservation. Erin says Willow's and a few others' popularity has also been steadily rising. I'd agree. The AEW now are protected by time. Time has protected them and will continue to do so. We're 20 minutes in. This segment's not grabbing me. It's very slow motion, even with Paul Heyman on it. I suspect if you're not into massive crowd reactions, you're not going to love the UK show. Bronson Reed has a microphone. It's a rarity. Liam says, how long is Ospreay out for? Not sure. I'll see what I can find out, but at this moment I'm not sure. Ron says, Brandon Thurston, who covers the AEW ratings, even noted Edge's segments lose more people. The WWE were not wrong in letting him go, and I don't think AEW were going to be wrong in letting him go. Bailey says AEW may be a more popular promotion in Europe than it is in the US. Debatable. They're doing well in the US. They are trying to be more international. It's just rarity and sparsity. Certainly a lot of people turned up to Wembley. I was one of them. Sean says, you mentioned earlier people carrying Raw like Seth and Becky, etc. Who would you say is carrying SmackDown? Alexa and Charlotte? I would definitely say Alexa and Charlotte are amongst those. They are wrestling a lot of matches. I would also argue, if we're talking carrying, the entire SmackDown tag team division. The tag team scene on SmackDown is incredible, and that includes the women. And yeah, every week there seems to be multiple tag matches. Bailey says the problem with these 30-minute openings is that they eat up the time for one or two matches that could otherwise be on the show. Yeah. So the crowd are obviously trying to keep things interesting. They are trying to get good reactions. The wrestlers love it. They are taking minutes away from the wrestling matches. Triple H will have already cut quite a bit of time from Rhea versus Roxanne, for example. I'd also like to point out Rhea Ripley's going to get a hell of a reaction. She might actually get the biggest reaction on the show. Give his shoes back. This is a weird feud. This is a very, very weird feud. He actually got a tribal thief shirt with shoes on them. I don't know what to do with that. Also, I kind of want to get a TC1 shirt because I'm TC. In fact, you might suggest I'm the OTC because I was TC before Roman was TC. There's some very interesting looking people in that crowd. Well, let's get physical. Do I see more coming in the crowd? No, just orderlies. Most interesting, I think, is that there's been no sign of a Bron break and no sign of a Seth Rollins here. They've ignored the advantage they should have. Bronson Reed just destroying people. Big splash. They don't call it a stinger splash when it's Bronson Reed. Probably because it doesn't sting. It hurts. I say weird shit. Is he serious? No, mate. That's a mugging. Like, that's illegal. Like, don't try and take people's shoes. It's just very strange. Hector says, I'm curious to know the internal reactions of WWE/TKO higher-ups when they saw AW beat their record at the O2 Arena. I could definitely see them loading up a UK card at some point for sure. The metrics are different. You know how it was like Demo God and all that jazz. AEW's measures of success are different from the WWE's. AEW is and to be clear, it should be. The metrics for success should be different between AEW and WWE. When you are the top company, your job is no longer to grow. Your job is to grow revenue. Whereas AEW benefit more from making less money in order to draw in more people. So they want more people. They want to break attendance records. And don't get me wrong, WWE also wants to break every possible record that it can. But when it comes to things like attendance records, they no longer really announce those. They're not trying to get attendance records. They're trying to get revenue records. They're not trying to fill the building. They're trying to make as much money as they can from the building, including the hiring of the building. We talked about this particularly a few times because when it comes to what WWE is doing now, it is no longer about the money you make from the tickets sold at the arena. It is about the money you make from the city itself to make you go to that arena. Lot of moving parts. Lot of moving parts. Liam says, do you think Reed wins in Paris or no? I hope so. Netflix seemed to suggest there'd be a commercial break. I'm seeing Roman walk to the back. Are we going to have no breaks here because it's in the UK? I mean, Michael Cole and Corey Graves are still talking. Can't be that bad. Sean said, do you think Cena loses in Paris? Yes. No. When it comes to Logan Paul, no, but I think he'll lose to Brock Lesnar when the time comes. I don't think the time is now, but I think we'll get there. A Black Sabbath reference. I wonder who he's trying to impress there, the Rhea Ripley or the Roxanne Perez, because neither of them really... Like, I know Rhea looks the way Rhea does, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's a Black Sabbath fan. Penta versus Kofi is interesting. There's a lot of love for the New Day in the UK, and they know how to advertise themselves in a way that increases that love. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Also, as regards Nikki Bella, as regards Becky Lynch, I think Becky Lynch might be getting the cheers. I think this must be a commercial break because we're getting recaps of what we've just seen. Bailey says, has Ron Killings vanished in favour of R-Truth? At least he got him a nice extension at the age of 52. The WWE did not sign a Ron Killings. They signed an R-Truth, and then R-Truth declared himself to be a Ron Killings. The most telling thing for me is that the WWE completely exposed Ron Killings as being someone who talks to the dirt sheets. Because you'll note several outlets were quite clear about the fact that he was changing to Ron Killings, except nobody in the WWE knew that was the plan. Nobody in the WWE knew that was the plan. The only source of information that could have come from, the only source of information, was via Ron Killings himself. Okay, so we've actually just come back from a commercial break that wasn't. I don't know if it's just the UK, I don't know if it's Netflix or what, but we didn't have a commercial break there. So I don't think people are getting breaks. Now, hopefully that does still happen. As much as I don't like breaks, I do want to react to news and all that jazz. But we are where we are, I suppose. Let me pull up the... Oh, El Grande has gained an extra cape. There's not enough capes. I'll bring up the news anyway, because at some point we will still cover it as best we can. Sean says, did Becky not want to miss the show in Dublin, which is why she was on SmackDown? Pretty much, yeah. It's more a case of WWE didn't want her to miss that show. And of course, being so close to home, Becky wanted to spend some time at home. I ain't blaming no one for it. Hector says, so Ron Killings was sort of a shoot in a weird way? Kind of, yeah. Dragon Lee's got some wings. Interesting. Yeah, it is kind of a shoot in a new way. Did not know that, Marcel. I did not know that. So you get sneak peeks if you're actually watching it live. Interesting. Yeah, Ron Killings really shot himself in the foot by telling people his intentions and making it clear that he speaks to dirt sheets, which is why the WWE have decided not to really bother since. I'll be interested to see if there is anyone from AAA tonight. Oh, interesting. Ed further clarifying what Marcel has said. There's non-stop coverage for the breaks with Netflix because the international audience doesn't have real commercials during it. Did not know that. Because it shows at 1 o'clock in the morning, so I wouldn't be able to. Interesting. So Dragon Lee facing off against the Judgment Day's JD McDonagh, who's apparently the ace. The Raw Tag Team division needs a lot of work. Like a lot of work. I don't think you could really have Raw Tag Team Champion on your resume in the same way you can on SmackDown. On SmackDown, those championships mean something. On Raw, they're just sort of there. Bailey says Corey Graves has really stepped up with his return to the Raw lineup. Suddenly, Pat McAfee isn't missed anymore. We did know that Pat McAfee was going to go missing for a bit. He has a lot of other responsibilities. I've reported here previously that he just won't be available to really get involved. But we are where we are. Let's update the title ability that we have when we're live. We can literally just change the title to Dragon Lee versus JD McDonagh, WWE Raw, 25 August 2025. And as the scene changes, we'll change our title as well. Then we'll change it to mentioning that it's a watch party when we get to the end of it. Joey says Triple H needs to build up new teams on Raw instead of always throwing the titles on Judgment Day. Typically I would push back, but I actually can't on this one. There was a whole set of storylines they were planning to do, or at least they seemed like they were trying to do, as they built up teams like Viking Raiders. And then they just sort of reverted to type and it just went back on Judgment Day. It's like, how many years were the Usos champions just because nobody got round to being decent competition? We're still kind of there. Marcel says yesterday there was a live event in Newcastle. JD McDonagh wore a Liverpool shirt with Isaac on it. Well, Isak, I should say. There's some tension as regards this. For those unaware, it's a football thing. Liverpool are trying to buy Alexander Isak from Newcastle. Newcastle are not happy with the way it's going because they're not willing to basically say, yeah, he's going. He is going. That's going to happen. But as they're oh, that's a lovely drop kick. As they're currently taking on each other, literally as we speak right now, that match is 34 minutes in, they're kind of pretending it's not going to happen. They're in denial. It's all very awkward. It's making for a very, very testy and aggressive football match, I'll tell you that. Sean says, move a SmackDown team to Raw, call up an NXT team for the Raw Tag Team division. I agree with that. I think there are definitely changes they can make to very quickly and very easily rebuild the Raw Tag division. I would look at Pretty Deadly moving across, and I'd look at probably the Motor City Machine Guns. One team there, of course, will be a bit lower down the card, helping build up, but featuring a bit more regularly on TV. Whereas the other team, Motor City Machine Guns, would be immediately competing with Judgment Day for the Tag Team Championships. I think that's all you need to do. It doesn't really weaken the SmackDown Tag Division that much. You've still got the Wyatts and the MFT who are going to be fighting over those championships. You've still got teams like DIY and the Street Profits, as well as plenty of other teams which are developing towards something or working towards growth. We've not seen a lot of Pretty Deadly recently. I think a move to Raw could be a huge benefit to them. You just need to make a couple of tweaks and a couple of changes, and the division starts to look very different. Everton says, will Dom and Styles be added to France? Surely can't have a French pay-per-view without the phenomenal one. I mean, he's not French, so you absolutely can. Sai says, the spicy game even more so now. Yeah, a lot of cards, a lot of arguments. Of all people to score that goal. I would say Newcastle have dominated, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Didn't expect to see that goal. I believe because I'm streaming multiple things, I'm slightly behind, but I'm okay with it. You gave me a sign that something was going to happen, Sai, so I made sure to pay attention. Meanwhile, JD McDonagh and Dragon Lee. JD McDonagh is speaking too openly. He's not hiding what he's saying. And I've got to say, I've said this before, but I need to make it clear. I struggle to understand JD McDonagh, and I do have Irish blood. I have spent some time in Ireland. He has a strong accent. Dragon Lee, I'm told, is not too dissimilar. There is a strong accent here. So they've made a choice with this match. And it might be a bit of a difficult choice. It might be a situation where there is no winner. What just happened there? Is that just a JD sell? Because if so, well done. It's very exciting. Everton says, can both teams lose? I believe that's called a draw, and it does tend to result in teams not doing well point-wise. Declan says, hi everyone. Welcome, Declan. How you doing? Declan Owan immediately boosting the chat rate. Thank you kindly. For those unaware, one of the easiest ways you can help a show like this to grow, one of the easiest ways you can significantly boost the amount of people who are recommended a show like this, is by ensuring the chat rate is high. There's a couple of different things you can do which tells YouTube the engagement on this show is great. And if the engagement on a show is great, what YouTube will then do is they'll push it out to as many people as possible. They will try and let the world know, hey, this show's got great engagement, you might enjoy it. YouTube right now is examining the watch history of all of you and trying to find people with similar watch histories so that it can recommend this show too. So if you're engaged, it looks at your watch history and gets more involved. I thought that was a win there. Nice. It's a good cover. So there are ways we can significantly boost this. Hitting like is definitely one of them. We have 20 people and 20 likes. That's a great ratio. I'm a very happy boy with that. In addition to that, we have chat rate. And while sometimes it can look like chat rate is being spammed, that is just to boost that chat rate. That is just to guarantee that more people will find the show. So I appreciate it. If we've got a lovely, lively chat anyway, that ain't a bad position to be in either. But we are a relatively small channel. Few audio issues coming through now. Oh, there's some skipping happening, and I'm wondering if it's Netflix or me. Oh, we did eventually get a powerbomb. Okay. Okay, we're definitely getting some technical issues. My PC CPU usage ain't terrible. It's not just me. Thank you, Sai. I was nervous there. I was very nervous. So yeah, my point was, thank you, Juan, thank you, Marcel, thank you, Declan, for boosting that chat rate. And thank you, Garmac, as well. How you doing? Good to see you. Ed says, a black screen is to set up coming back from the break in the States with the counter in the top right corner when the shows go to commercial break. I did spot that. That's what made me think initially that we were on commercial break. It's nice, however, to have the confirmation. Fair side, fair. Declan says it's me. Okay, well, Declan has let us know that he's the problem. Cheers, mate. Sean says, do you think Carl Urban will be a good Johnny Cage? I do, actually. I really do. I think he's got everything the character needs. He doesn't necessarily fit the conventional stereotype. Refcam just spotting the ref poking Mo Salah. Anyway, sorry, got distracted. But when it comes to the Johnny Cage character, I think Carl Urban's going to be absolutely fantastic. I think the man's got a lot of range. We saw him in Lord of the Rings, we saw him in Star Trek. Nothing like he was in Boys. The guy's got range. Declan says Nikki versus Becky is going to happen at Clash in Paris. And Juan says, let's attract trolls to boost the chat rate. This, by the way, is why we're actually not that anti-troll. It's also why we say hi troll and bye troll. Just as a general rule, we say hi troll and bye troll. Because what you've done there is give me 2 boosts to the chat rate. And in fact, just to prove the point, chat rate has gone up to 7 and we have just peaked at our highest amount of viewership. We've got a few people in now who may not have necessarily known that this show was happening. So as if to prove the point, likes go up, chat rate goes up, and just like that, so does viewership. Dragon Lee has picked up the win. Netflix seems to have fixed that particular buffering issue. Hopefully it won't be something that happens again. Dragon Lee picks up the win over JD McDonagh. At the moment, when it comes to Judgment Day, the general rule is protect Finn, protect Dominic, protect Raquel, don't protect Roxanne, don't protect JD. Their time may come, their time may not. Bailey says, when was the last time the current version of NXT did a show in the UK? A long time, as far as I recall. They don't really travel. They're not a travelling show. LA Knight in the bar backstage. Fun fact, if I was doing media for this show, the WWE would have given me a meal in that particular room. WWE historically look after you. They want to make sure they get good coverage, and by and large they do. Dimitar says, hi Tom, any news on plans for the World Heavyweight Championship belt? Difficult. I was thinking Seth would eventually lose it to the winner of the Royal Rumble, Sami Zayn. That doesn't seem to be where we're going. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to think it might actually just be Punk. We head back towards Rollins versus Punk. I think there's a few options. There's no bad options, really. I don't think LA Knight's getting the rub, as it were, but we've got options there. Pete says, mine's lagging. Yeah, same issue here, unfortunately. Welcome, Pete. Good to see you. Welcome, Dimitar, as well. Good to see you, guys. Sean says, do you think we'll find out what will happen to the women's world title? We will. It'll take him a minute while they finalise things, but I do suspect we're looking at a Stephanie Vaquer as the most likely next women's world champion. So he says, I'm warming to LA Knight. I only can't stand him now. I think he is now quite firmly established in and around the main event scene. I think he would benefit from taking off a bit of that pressure, but he has risen to it. I also think he's actually been put in a bit of a difficult situation recently. When it comes to promos, in the Fatal 4-Way, he's the third best. At most, he's the third best. Up there at the top is CM Punk. Next is Seth Rollins. And his work opposite them has not been great. He's flubbed quite a lot of his lines recently. Not too aggressively, and I do feel like he's maybe intimidated or awed by the moment. He's had a lot of lines to learn recently as well, but he has flubbed a few of them, and WWE have noticed. Beyond that, I would argue that Jey Uso is not necessarily a great promo, but he has his catchphrases and he sticks to them. Declan says, I thought Stephanie struggles talking English. She does. She's not a fluent English speaker. She is having to be scripted, and she is needing rehearsal time. She is, however, taking lessons, and she's being well guided and showing a significant improvement. More than, for example, Julia, who hasn't necessarily seen the improvement that the WWE have been hoping to see. Is she? Good to see you. Says hello, Tom, and hope you're okay. Doing well, thank you. No news on Wire 6 tonight because we are a WWE Raw show. Sai says, I don't know if that's being put in a bad position. He needs to rise to it. Punk has also fluffed a few lines. Fair. I think more than anything, the last few shows, there's been some bad luck because they haven't really had the time to put together what they need to put together. They haven't really had a chance to sit down and work out what the right things to say are. CM Punk laid down a gauntlet, essentially said, I'm going to go there, I'm going to cut this promo. Let's see what you can do. He's done okay. Joey says, hopefully the Usos get back together. I feel like their single runs have gotten stale. I would argue that Jimmy Uso hasn't really had a singles run. Not recently, anyway. He's just the backup to Jacob now. It's a good spot for Jacob. It's a good association to have, but it's not really shining a spotlight on Jimmy. And after the match at WrestleMania against Jay, Jimmy needed to prove a point. I don't feel he has. I really don't feel he has. I feel like there's a big scrap coming in this Newcastle-Liverpool game. Van Dijk just taken out by Anthony Gordon. Where were we? Everton says, is Stephanie Vaca going to Paris or not? If so, who's she facing? WWE were looking at options for this. They were looking at their options for this. I do think Stephanie's going to be the next champion. They were... Oh, that is an amazing look. They were considering having Stephanie win the championship in Paris, but I personally think it might take a little longer. Just because they've decided to take a bit more time with it. I still think that's the intention. Sean says, Julia hardly has promos. How can she get better at them? By learning more English. You're going to struggle to do promos in English if you're not a great English speaker. So to improve with promos, just get more used to speaking English. There's a consideration here about a red card. Drama. Appreciate that, Ishi. I know what you care about, man. I know what you care about. Declan says, I'd like to see Becky versus the Women's World Champion. Then there's going to need to be a Women's World Champion for her to face. I don't think this is a red card. I think he was out of control. Studs, however, were down. It's one leg. It's dangerous, though. Oh, I don't know. Bailey says, Io Sky's made progress in English, but it's something Stephanie needs to be elevated to the top. Yes. The reason Io Sky's had the push she has when she did, and in fact became the champion when she did. I've been to the Moulin Rouge. I've not been in the Moulin Rouge because tickets were fucking expensive, and ultimately if I want to see titties, I've got a phone. Oh, getting a promo for Rusev. Interesting. Declan says, what if Becky loses the IC title at Clash at Paris? I cannot personally see that happening because that would mean Nikki Bella being around a lot more. Oh, is this this is a red card? That's a red card. Respect for Van Dijk there going over. He's the guy who's been hit and giving him some reinforcement, but I do think that's game over. Funnily enough, Anthony Gordon is apparently someone that Liverpool have always been very interested in. It's not Cherry Coke. Certainly I think it looks that way. It's Cherryade. Cherryade in a Coca-Cola glass. I don't think Rusev has been brilliant so far. I don't think he's been given much. I don't think WWE were ready for him to return the way he did. I think it's been a good decision by Tony Khan to release him when he did. I'm not sure it's PLE worthy, but I do think Sheamus is going to get a pretty good reception. Sai says there's legit been more graphic violence in the Liverpool-Newcastle match than on Raw. I do like the whole I'm doing two things at once business. I might just have to start doing that more often. few arguments between Balor and Dominic. I feel like Finn Balor's checked out a little bit. He got a new deal, and it was a good deal. But he's a bit of a background player. At the same time, like I say about background characters, it's not a horrible place to be. There's a lot of very good wrestlers who are happy being in the background at the minute. I think as well, the rise of AEW resulted in a lot of people thinking, oh, I can be a world champion if I go here. I can be a world champion if I go here. That vibe has gone. So someone like Finn Balor, who could arguably have gone to AEW and been one of the top guys, is starting to recognise that kind of not. So he is starting to be a bit more accepting of a reduced position. She says, do you like the Wyatt Six, and do you think this time around they'll get the success they are looking for? Yes, I think they've made some concessions to the WWE. The WWE have made some concessions to them. I think we've finally reached the point where they met in the middle. And that's just a very happy place for everyone involved. Sean says, is Nikki on limited days? Yes, she is. She's not on a full-time contract. She's arguably not necessarily on a contract. She's basically being booked day to day. Which is one of the reasons I don't think she's going to be the champion. The WWE do not have her locked in and tied down to a deal. She says, I see Nikki Cross eyeing that US title. Yeah, I'm excited about that as a prospect. I genuinely am. I think there's a lot of fun they can have with that. Joey says, maybe bringing Lana back would help Rusev. The Redeemer gimmick isn't working in WWE. WWE have very little interest in Lana. Very little. They believe there's more drama there than value. It's very similar to how Karrion Kross wasn't given a new deal that he was happy with because it didn't involve Scarlett Bordeaux getting a deal. WWE aren't interested in Lana. It's the same way they weren't interested in Brandy. WWE, the way I've had it explained to me, WWE are concerned that they're essentially carrying passengers for no reason. Strong words, but those are the words that I was told. Bailey says, Rusev is sadly on the Braun Strowman track. His WWE run is running short. Yeah. I also think this is a terrible version of Rusev. I think Rusev connected most with the fans when he was allowed to be comedic. And I think he's gone to AEW where he's wanted to be a hulking bruiser. And he's come back to WWE like, oh, well, I still want to be a hulking bruiser. I want to be damaging. I want to be built strong. I want to be unstoppable. I want to be like I was the first time. Rusev Day connected with the fans. If you're gonna connect with the fans, go back to Rusev Day. Go back. Declan says, Tom, do you like Tiffany and Jade versus Becky and Nia at the main event on SmackDown last Friday in Dublin? Can't really comment too much on that. I thought it was okay, but I was a bit distracted while watching it. Sean, yeah, I think Rusev Day was the way. I think if he'd have been heralded, even just on a one-time basis, bring back Aiden English, herald the arrival of Rusev Day, and then go from there. I think that would immediately have made a much, much better impact than beating up Otis and Tozawa, who the fans aren't really behind now anyway. I do want to say again, Xavier Woods looks amazing. The man is so stylish. Right. So I popped up the rumour roundup of cage side seats. We're in the middle of a match. Let's have a word. Let's read out what they've got and let's do some reactions to it. So, starting with today's. Dave Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio that the WWE archive will likely end up on the ESPN service by the end of the year. Yeah. So that's exactly what happened with Peacock. That's exactly what happened with Netflix. Yeah. PWInsider says Vince McMahon had a big party to celebrate his 80th birthday, and names like John Cena, Sheamus, R-Truth, The Undertaker, and Bruce Pritchard were all in attendance. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, not mentioned there is names like Triple H, who were also in attendance, by the way. But there was a lot of wrestlers in attendance. Brock Lesnar, I'm told, at least made an appearance there. So it is interesting seeing certain wrestlers who still very much back Vince. What I will say is that the lawsuit is for Vince and WWE, and so far, WWE are backing Vince McMahon. Ooh. They also say there's been talk about the Raja Jackson incident at Knox Pro Wrestling within WWE, considering the promotion is affiliated. There could be an effort to create some distance. Ooh, okay. Fightful Select notes the talk of a third team being added to the Forbidden Door tag title match to get the belts off the Hurt Syndicate goes back about a month ago, so it wasn't necessarily done that way in response to any request. Plus, said they haven't heard that Hurt Syndicate outright rejected losing to anyone. I want to read that again, and I want you guys to tell me at what point anything definitive was said. Fightful Select notes talk of a third team being added to the Forbidden Door tag title match. So talk of a third team being added to a Forbidden Door tag title match to get the belts off Hurt Syndicate goes back about a month ago, so it wasn't necessarily done that way in response to any request. Plus, they said they haven't heard that Hurt Syndicate outright rejected losing to anyone. It's a lot of fluff. They also say Kota Ibushi was genuinely shocked to be added to the Lights Out Steel Cage match. I always forget AEW signed Kota Ibushi. He's an amazing wrestler and he just sort of doesn't exist. Fightful also says AEW is preparing for Swerve Strickland to take time off to get surgery. That's a bit more conclusive at least. Ooh, thank you, Blue. Says, hi, Tom. As to the Fightful video, that just seems to indicate they knew they wouldn't do the job. Yeah, which is... It's not huge news. Joey says, do you think Vince will be at Cena's final match? This is a difficult one. Vince McMahon has not been permitted to be at any WWE shows, but a large part of why that's worked is because Vince McMahon has not tried to be at any WWE shows. If, however, Vince McMahon decided he wanted to try and be at any WWE shows, I think the WWE would allow him to be. Which is a difficult sentence to say. Also says, is Omos a AAA wrestler now? Not full-time, he's still under contract to the WWE, but he's been loaned out because they just don't like using him on WWE TV. I don't know how better to explain this. They just don't seem to care much. Kofi is not great coming off the ropes. Bailey says, do the Creed brothers still work regularly? We don't see much of them on Raw during Gable's injury. They work live shows. They're not on TV, you're absolutely right. And I suspect they may be leaving the company sooner rather than later. Talented wrestlers do not connect with the crowd in any way. I wish they'd be given a bit more of an opportunity. Blue says that's because Kota Ibushi broke both his ankles and finally had to take time off to heal, and had to take real time off to heal after trying a lot of alternative medicine that didn't work. Kota Ibushi is a really genuinely weird guy. Famasa. I don't know how better to explain it. Kota Ibushi is a really weird guy. He lives on a 25-hour clock, for example. I don't know what that means, but he apparently does. There's also... I've seen a lot of Kota Ibushi wrestling. Yes, he is, Joey, and there's a reason for this, and I'm about to tell you why. I've seen a lot of Kota Ibushi wrestling, right? And I've never seen anyone take a bump to the neck like Kota Ibushi. Particularly when the bump in question is not to the neck. I've seen Kota Ibushi sell his neck on low blows. I've seen Kota Ibushi sell his neck when he's in a different state. the man's neck is basically held on by twigs. I'm surprised at the kick out from Kofi there. Ishii says, when do you see the Wyatt Six having their next PLE? Kind of leaning towards War Games, personally. You guys know I've been reporting on MFT versus Wyatt Six. I could see a world in which Wyatt Six and MFT happens in a War Games. Blue says Kota versus Naito looked like attempted murder. Yeah. Yeah, every Kota Ibushi match looks like attempted murder because Kota Ibushi always looks seriously hurt. Because Kota Ibushi is always seriously hurt. It's amazing to watch. Doesn't make any sense. Joey liked Kota in the Cruiserweight Classic. Absolutely. He is an incredible wrestler. To tell the story, I think most of you already know it. Kota Ibushi didn't know where the Cruiserweight Classic was. He didn't know the filming location. He just sort of asked around. And when he got to the arena, he asked for directions from an old man he found backstage. And when the old man in question pointed in the right direction, he gave the old man a high five. The old man was Vince McMahon. Kota Ibushi had no idea. Okay, so I did kind of think that Kofi might come out of this one the winner. Penta's wrestling a lot. Penta's one of those people I feel we talk about carrying. Penta's wrestling a lot. He's not necessarily getting much good fortune. Okay, so I'm just having a quick check to see what Clash in Paris is looking like. It's supposed to start at 5 p.m. UK time. So it might actually be 6 o'clock based on that. I got confused by the kickoff show. So about 6 o'clock. Not a bad spot to be in. Blue says, what do you think is the most likely War Games match? As I say, I still lean towards the Y6 versus MFT. I do. Oh, we got Cody. Oh, it's an Unreal ad. Declan is surprised Kofi won. Everton says Kofi beat Penta. Right, that's me not watching wrestling again. Poor booking. Blue says Kota and Kenny were born for each other. Yeah, it's... Kota is a pretty definitive bimbo. That's not an insult. Blue says, any chance they finally put the Lucha Bros back together soon? I hope so, but that does sort of spell the end for Andrade. Interesting that I've just spotted in the background of Unreal, The Miz has his own bus. I did not know that. Sean says, do you think John Cena will be at Survivor Series? Yes. Ishii says, I wonder how Wyatt 6 will be in a War Games. Dexter Lumis will be coming off the top. Basically. Declan, the feud has not started yet. Ed, yes. I did indeed say Kota is a himbo. Proper himbo energy. Okay, we're just over an hour in, and so far I've got to say, Raw's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. We've had a decent amount of wrestling. The opening promo dragged on a little bit. It's difficult because you've missed quite a few people. You've missed Seth Rollins, for example. So there's still quite a few people that we haven't seen yet. Becky, for example. We haven't really been focusing on the big stars. So the fact that it's still been quality entertainment, I'm happy with that. Ishii says, when do you see Y6 versus MFT actually starting? I can see it being in October. Personally. Rhea Ripley, who, as mentioned, is going to get a big pop. The Rhea and Io friendship is an interesting tale. They just seem to quite like each other. And yet, Io is still struggling a little bit with the English. Not to the same level as Kairi, though. Kairi doesn't seem to have learned any. Like, after all those years, Kairi still doesn't seem to have learned any English. Tom's again kind of sexy now. Good background acting. Asuka massively overreacting. Kairi just sort of hovering. Kairi never seems to know where she is or what she's doing. She just seems to drift through life. Bismo says, sitting outside enjoying the sun, listening to Tom's take on Raw and wrestling news. Welcome, Bismo. Good to see you. One says, besides Punk, who else left on bad terms of AEW? A lot of people. Quite a few people. There's some very unhappy people there. Some have left and accused Tony Khan of racism. Not as of yet, Blue. So I'm sure that moment will come. Noob says we're definitely getting more Rhea, Io Sky and Kabuki Warriors interactions tonight. Blue says Rhea and Io have good friends, better enemies written all over them in a way that is more natural than most of these pairings. I do not disagree with that. I think that's a good way of saying it. Sean says, do you know if WWE would have an interest in Danhausen? This is difficult. He's got a decent audience behind him. There's interest from NXT. And there is no interest from WWE, but there's interest from NXT. I think you'll get what I'm saying there. No, Noob, absolutely. Asuka's English is good. She's improved. WWE concerned that Kairi just hasn't. Sean says, when do you think Asuka turns heel? I think she kind of already is, to be honest. They just haven't finalised it. Liverpool have kicked off 20 seconds later. Hugo Ekitike's... Try that again. Hugo Ekitike has scored his third goal in 3 successive matches. Jesus. It's a good time to be a Liverpool fan. Blue says Julia is easily the best when it comes to English from the women from Japan, and she's by far the newest. As I say, she's continuing to improve so that they can call matches in the ring as they go. Blue says Kairi plays the aloof bestie in an anime, and she is a big anime fan, to be fair. She's getting her influence in the right spot. She says, is Bayley going to have another Wyatt 6 connection? I'm not sure. I'm interested in what Bayley's doing. Noob says, Kairi saying just that. Joey says, did Cedric not get brought into the Hurt Syndicate because of Big Swole? The concerns with Big Swole, real, genuine, still going. Will says, Mad Asuka is the best Asuka. Blue says, Danhausen would be perfect for NXT. Halloween Havoc would be so much fun. And Joey says, Danhausen's just a gimmick, to be honest. He doesn't really do anything else. That is, like, perfect for NXT. Declan says, AJ versus Finn is happening. I mean, when you talk about big stars and big matches, that's the badger right there. Newcastle tactics seem to be to dive and try and get Konate sent off. See how that goes. Oh, we've just rewound. We've just rewound to the previous segment. Pretty sure we were heading into something with Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella. That doesn't seem to be happening now. Blue says, what is the Big Swole situation with Cedric? Are they together? I haven't kept up with the personal relationships. Bailey says, on the NXT PLE, the credits read Paul Levesque and Lee Fitting, but they use the name Shawn Michaels. Is there any reason Shawn wouldn't use his given name on the credits? I believe the most likely scenario is that Shawn Michaels legally changed his name. Blue says it's funny how NXT PLEs are night and day with their weekly TV. I don't watch enough weekly TV to really comment on that. Joey says, do you think AJ gets one last title run with the IC belt? Wouldn't be against it, but I don't think he's going to be the focus going forwards. I think WWE have left AJ Styles in the background, and I think that's going to continue. Noob says Danhausen is the most entertaining wrestler, very good, very evil. And Blue says, as regards Shawn Michaels, I too would change my name if it was Michael Hickenbottom. Ishii says, who do you see taking the titles off Wyatt 6? I hope it's not MFT. I think it'll probably be MFT. Like, there's no intent behind it, just I think that's the most likely. They're trying to normalise the Wyatt 6, and the best way to do that is to have them lose a few matches. Blue says, I stopped watching NXT Weekly because of time, but it was always so wacky. It definitely stood out. There's been generations of NXT which have been very entertaining. There's been generations of NXT which have been very confusing. There's been generations of NXT which have intentionally been very sexy. I'm not complaining. It's a good show. Declan thinks Raw is a mess. I don't know why it's rewound. Did it rewind for anyone else? Or is it just me? Because from where I'm sitting, it just dropped back to the previous promo segment. Yeah, it's saying it's not live. It was just me. Don't know what happened there. Interesting. Yep, just caught up to Stephanie promo. And the arrival of Becky Lynch. Everton says Stephanie's missing Paris. Sad times. Yeah, the plans did seem to involve championships involved, but I'm sure we'll get there. Let's change our title. Becky Lynch calls out Nikki Bella for a clash in Paris. And the most likely scenario as to why it rewound is that someone else in my house started watching Raw. Joey says NXT 2.0 just felt like a gimmick experiment show. She says the Wyatt 6 get the win in War Games if it happens. Oh, Bailey says they're on a 6-minute ad break in the US. Awkward. I mean, especially with Raw not having that long left. Is it 2.5 hours now? I've only watched it with no ads for a while. I think we're halfway through. No, Bismarck, I think that was Netflix on my side. Joey says Raw's all over the place with tech issues. Everton says, as regards Stephanie, the pop for her would have been out of this world. But she would have lost. So I do think we're actually getting something very different from Stephanie. Thank you, Blue. Appreciate that. Sean, yes, Red is. Red very much is. And speaking of Becky Lynch, she's a Becky mark in every possible way. Noob says Stephanie Vaca is very understandable in any situations. There's something stoic about her. I agree. Her presentation's very good. She knows who she is. And she knows how to take advantage of that. I expected a bigger response to Becky, but I also think most people still don't really like the new music. It's just very generic. Her old theme was much better for me. Joey says Stephanie has really outshined Julia so far. I'd argue also she's been put in a position to do so. Julia, for example, came in with Roxanne Perez, had a couple of tag matches, won a championship, and then vanished. Whereas Stephanie has been regularly featured and presented as a big deal. Oh, she pronounced Birmingham properly. That's his quality. She says MFT are not doing anything. They're always losing. And Bismo says, did Becky get Def Rebel on her new theme? WWE got Def Rebel on Becky's new theme. Okay, this is weird because it's all the classic WWE tropes. But because she's not in America, it's not working the same. The Aston Villa call-out was not the strongest option. Oh, someone broke his shoulder. I think Sandro Tonali got his shoulder popped out. Sean says, I didn't like the new music for Becky either, Tom. Her old theme works better as a face or heel. I agree. There was no reason to change it. No need at all. Joey says, I wonder why Becky picked that theme. It doesn't really fit her character. I don't think she picked it. I think she certainly had input. Broke Neck Barbie is an absolutely killer line. Blue says, Becky's music change might be the worst ever. Imagine if Austin changed his music beyond the lyric version. I mean, Austin did change his music. It wasn't a huge change. People still hated it. But I mean, he was a heel for a reason. They knew what they were doing with that one. Sid says, Vince Russo said he's not going to waste his time sitting through a full show of Raw or SmackDown. Cool. I could not care less about Vince Russo. His opinion means absolutely nothing to me. Well done him on not watching a show that he apparently then starts talking about. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. I immediately lose respect for people who think they should be applauded for not watching something. Watch what you want, don't watch what you don't want. Get out of my face. Oh, Nikki Bella is rhyming. I nearly said Becky Nella. Nikki's lines are not going to last if she starts mentioning Charlotte. Charlotte's a face now, after all. Bailey says, too much talk in this sketch. I do feel like this is the beginning of a second part of Raw. We had the massive promo at the beginning. We're now getting the massive promo in the middle. Being wrestle heavy, not a bad thing. Nikki Bella's in an awkward spot here. Don't get me wrong. Becky Lynch has tried to run the crowd down and get them against her, but also it's Becky Lynch and it's the UK. We're not going to hate her. And she says, do Finn will still get a Wyatt 6 versus Judgment Day feud, or will Judgment Day split up? I never expected we were going to get a Wyatt 6 Judgment Day feud. I was constantly seeing reports of it, and I was constantly saying it's not happening. And then it didn't. It didn't. Okay, no, Becky's landed on absolute gold there. Because no, 800 years apparently wasn't enough. Newcastle have scored a goal. It's now 2-1. Becky's responses are not very Becky Lynch. I feel like the crowd want to get behind this. It's just not necessarily good enough. It's not necessarily worth it. WWE now confirming that Becky Lynch will face Nikki Bella at Clash in Paris. Why? Because she got called another C word. It's amazing how easy the villains are. The Osborne reference is bad. That... Oh, don't love that. Seems unnecessary. Bailey says Becky's too talkative in this character. Yeah, she's all talk, no action. Also, letting someone else hold her title is not very Becky. Second she went for it, she should have gone crazy. Ugh. She says, what if MFT cost Wyatt 6 the titles? Then the MFT would have cost the Wyatt 6 the titles. What if this happens? Then that thing has happened. There's no massive explanation here. There's no, here is exactly what will happen because of this. It's, if that happens, then that will have happened. John says, really surprised WWE is having Charlotte and Alexa defend the tag belts on SmackDown in France. Alexa doesn't usually travel to overseas shows. Yeah, her schedule's a bit more clear now. Things have changed. Bismo says, I wish both of them to shut up. Their voices are like nails on a chalkboard and not getting much heat. They seemed very proud of a lot of those lines. There was one very good line from Becky and one kind of horrible one. And I think Nikki Bella reads her lines like I'm watching a elementary school play. There's nothing natural to them. And halfway through Raw, CM Punk has arrived. Ishii, I've shared all of the news I possibly can. What you're doing now is digging for an answer that doesn't exist. Here we are again. Sai says, I had to dip for a bit. Are you covering the Paris show, Tom? Yes, I am. We will be hosting another full live watch party for Clash in Paris, and I hope to see as many of you there as I can. There's still a few stars we haven't seen. Jey Uso, for example. We've seen Roman. When it comes to this particular feud, we've seen LA Knight and now CM Punk. We haven't seen Jey, we haven't seen Seth. But we have seen Becky. We've seen a little bit of Rhea. Definitely some star power in this Raw roster. I love how he gave everyone their full name apart from Jey Uso. Jey Uso just gets Jey. Ishii, once again, there is no answer that I have for you. The WWE will have the Wyatt Six in the division that they are in for as long as they want them to be in it. I don't know what else you're asking for here. I don't love LA Knight Bron Breakker as a main event. I told you Rhea would get a good pop. But I suppose if LA Knight's going to be a top star, you might as well. Rhea's feeling it. You can tell Rhea's feeling it. Joey says, will there be a roster reshuffle if there's no draft? There's been elements of that. The LA Knight Sami Zayn swap, for example. A few more steps to be involved in this, and I do think there's going to be more back and forth, but I think that's primarily because Triple H just doesn't like the brand split. From best I can tell, talk of a draft started about a year ago now, landed on Triple H's desk, and every week Triple H is asked, how's that draft coming along? And every week Triple H says, yeah, it's good, but a bit more time though. And just stalls. The man does not like the brand split. Never has, even when he was a wrestler. We will find out, is she? Bailey says, Rhea Ripley is the future of the WWE and not just the women's division. I take offence to that, Bailey, for a simple reason. She ain't the future of anything. She's the now. I find it almost embarrassing when we see reports that Rhea Ripley's going to be the future of the company. She's been a top star for years. She's been the center of the division for years. She's a multiple-time champion. She's not the future. She's the present. Joey said, was the draft only done to copy the NFL? The draft format was done to take advantage of NFL traffic. Yeah, to be clear, Bailey, you just gave me a platform to say that. In no way was I offended by anything you actually said. Rhea making a lot of faces. It upsets me that the US are not able to see Rhea Ripley's entrance. Because she just looks like she's having the time of her goddamn life. And I think that's good TV. Kevin suggests that Rhea Ripley and Toni Storm are the most over women. I would suggest Mercedes Money is still very much up there. She says, is Jacob finished with Solo or is he still going to go after Solo? He's going to pick his moment. They've moved on for now. I do like the camera rotating around Roxanne. She's starting to develop her entrance. As regards to football, there is just a lot of throwing themselves on the ground right now. It's all very sad. Kevin says, WWE say something about the Raw women's titles. Sorry, what do you mean Raw women's titles? There's only one set? God. She says if we get Wyatt 6 versus MFT at War Games, the Wyatt 6 are going to need a fifth member, or they do a 4v4. That is also an option. The fifth member could also be Jacob. Genuinely think Sandro Tonali is going to be out for a while with whatever's going on with his arm. Or he's just a really good seller. He could be like Randy Orton level. Okay, Kevin. Gotcha. Appreciate that clarification. So, Rhea Ripley. Rhea Bloody Ripley? Rhea Bloody Ripley versus Roxanne Perez. Becky does not look even slightly comfortable in that podcast. I put Roxanne, which is not her name. Gotcha, Kevin. It wasn't good. I didn't enjoy that. I feel Becky was stilted. I feel Nikki was too scripted. I think there was one really good line about British invasions because we're an easy target because historically we are dickheads. It was all right after that. Okay, we've had the Rusev segment earlier, we're now having the Sheamus segment. I do like these segments, primarily because of the way it just breaks down the show. If you just had match, it would get dull. If you just had promo, it would get dull. So I do think they've broken the show down very well. We've seen some backstage interviews, we've seen some hype packages like these. Then you've got matches, then you've got promos. That's a lot to be working towards. No, Kevin, absolutely, but the first segment was supposed to be better. When it comes to the WWE's booking process, particularly as regards the late-on call-outs and late-on face-to-faces, the point of that is not anything to do with the crowd and attendance. The point of the Becky, Nikki, Bella segment that we just had is the hype package. The editors have put together a hype package for the match a week ago, and they've realised what they're missing. And then they write what they're missing in that hype package, they give it to Triple H, who writes something of that style, and gets the wrestlers to say it on the go-home show. So yeah, that's literally the reason behind it. The editing team has looked at what they've got to work with going into the show. Their hype package is missing something, and they tell WWE to book a segment which allows them to get it. If at the Go Home show they decide we haven't been physical enough, there'll be a scrap. And that's what happened with Bronson Reed and Roman Reigns. That's all it is. Go Home shows are not scripted by Triple H. Go Home shows are scripted by the editing team. It's a fun little tidbit to have, isn't it? Yeah, the Donnybrook is a weird one. It's basically just a whatever Sheamus says it is, no holds barred match. But he's Irish, so you have to really, really focus on that. It all seems very unnecessary. Few times now they've used the phrase a great rookie year. I do feel like that's a little reductive. Roxanne's been heavily involved, but this is not her rookie year. She had the NXT years, she was Roxy for a while. Raquel Rodriguez is at ringside. Judgment Day feel like they've moved on pretty firmly from Liv Morgan. In a way that I think will be very good for Liv Morgan when she does eventually return. There's no downside to WWE moving on, because it means that the wrestlers in question have moved on. And when the fans start to forget, when the fans start to stop expecting to see Liv Morgan, that's when she'll have the most impact. I'm sure we'll hear references to Liv, but this is the main reason that Dominic has stopped talking about her. Just so that we're getting closer to her return, and they want to make sure that you stop expecting her. Of course, what's going to work against this is that when she is ready to return, people like me are going to tell you about it, but it's still not quite the same. After all, I'm only a small channel. Roxanne and Rhea don't necessarily seem to have particularly strong chemistry so far, but it is early days and it might be that they're feeling each other out. That's a huge Let's Go Rhea chant. Good catch. Fall away. Oh, one arm. She had Roxanne by one arm there. Raquel, by the way, has added certain clothing options because of the advice of Kevin Nash. She's taking a lot of advice from Kevin Nash at the moment, and honestly, it's kind of working for her. That facial expression is definitely Kevin Nash. Joey says, Joey says, it's not a true Donnybrook until we get another Irish wrestler in the match. That's how it should be. I agree with that. A Donnybrook has to feature two of the Irish going at it at once. Do WWE have a lot of Irish wrestlers? Kurt Hawkins isn't around anymore, is he? Joey says, do you think the Judgment Day will be a revolving door like the Bullet Club with new people joining? Yeah, I actually do. And I also don't think that's a bad thing. You can see the elements of whatever the next Judgment Day will look like. I think we have a leader in Dominic, for example. And then you can see new members coming in and eventually overthrowing him in the same way. It becomes an endless nation of domination. You know, if they actually dominated. After all, they were the nation of domination, It feels like they're going for the big Rhea Ripley moves. I also, like, you're trying to push Raquel as this big unstoppable force. I said this when they were feuding in NXT, but that does not work when you're taking on someone like Rhea Ripley. You can present yourself as dominant as you want. Rhea Ripley is as dominant, if not more dominant, just by the nature of being Rhea Bloody Ripley. You're not going to win that particular battle. You're not going to come out on top in that particular call-out. Lovely move from Roxanne. I love when she does that one. So if you want to be booked as a big hulking badass, do not feud with Rhea Ripley. It just doesn't help the situation. Going into a commercial break, I am reminded of, particularly during the pandemic, the very first pandemic show at the Performance Center, when the commercial break was leaked in other countries. And Fightful got a hold of the video and shared it, and Alexa Bliss was furious. She was in that segment. It was Bliss and Cross versus Banks and Bayley. It does remind me a little bit of that, because the WWE at that point essentially told wrestlers, don't stop wrestling. The wrestlers were blamed for that. It was the wrestlers who were blamed. Which obviously adds a little bit to the difficulty that they've had. It used to be that they could go into rest holds, they could calm down, they didn't have to do this, that, or the other. They could just... well, rest is the right word, I suppose. Now they can't do that. WWE blamed the wrestlers in that moment, so we are where we are. Sean says, I'd like for Liv to stay heel when she returns. She's better at it than a babyface. I'm confident she'll get a huge babyface reaction. I also don't think she has to change, even though she changes dynamic. A pissed off Liv Morgan is a damn good watch, regardless of heel or face. This game could be one of the worst Newcastle have ever had, and I don't mean in the scale of a bad performance. I think their actual performance has been fantastic. But they've had a red card to Gordon. Sandro Tonali has gone off with what looks like a shoulder injury. It looks like, I think Bruno... is that... I'm not sure who it is. I don't really know the team. But he's going off. He seems to be in tears, and I imagine he looks seriously injured. So their midfield might be broken for the rest of the year. It's a bad day to be Newcastle. Because in addition to all that, it's only going to be a couple of days before Alexander Isak comes to Liverpool. Interesting. Kevin says WWE need to do a tournament for who's going to face Stephanie Vaquer. Yes, Kevin, I remember that. Someone did leak Keith Lee beating Adam Cole. I remember exactly who did leak that, and they really didn't need to. I was working with them at the time, and I lost a lot of respect in that moment. Declan says, Stephanie versus mystery opponent, but my guess is Becky. Your guess is always going to be Becky, mate, let's be fair. Roxanne has been able to work quite creatively here and find ways to level the playing field with Rhea. It's good news, and she needed to. The size difference is substantial. Yeah, the size difference is substantial. If she says, will Friday go back to normal? It depends. I'll need to have a look at the schedule, because if Friday's SmackDown takes place earlier, I'll probably do the same thing. Thank you, Si. I appreciate it. I wasn't sure whether it was Gamer Ash or Joe Linton. I think they briefly walked together, which just obsessed me further. Ed, it wasn't quite a tweet, but you're very close. I believe it was an Instagram post, which was live for seconds. The image was fed to the wrong people as well. Lost some respect, yeah. Roxanne has very much leveled the playing field here. Oh, knee to the back of the head. She has got some very unique offense. Oh, whoa, someone's actually seriously hurt in the match again. Fabian Shah? Brilliant, is she? If that's the case, I'll do the same thing. We'll have a few watch parties for once. Why not? It just seems silly to do a spoiler warning after a show. Like, all the news I've got is probably going to be already actioned, you know? Going for the razors? Oh, go! That was very jackknife razor's edge. Very nice sell as well. Into a very quick Shining Wizard. Kevin says, congrats to Dana Brooke, the new TNA Women's Champion. That's betting on yourself. Declan says, who remembers a Thunderdome where the fans... Oh, no, leaving that one. She says, I'll be there Friday, can't wait. Cool, excited for it. Sly says only Newcastle could mess up being the richest club in the world. You say that, but you saw what City responded against Tottenham. Liverpool are making their changes now to try and keep people fresh. It's definitely a pretty major head injury. Allison was looking worried. Roxanne trying to get us. Kind of over-rolled her up there. Which, as long as she kicks out, makes sense. Right, what actually happened here? Lost out to Van Dyke. Headbutt but kept hold of the hair. That was clever. That should be that. Sexy pin. Kind of eye fucked the shit out of the referee there. Just throwing that out there. I think she was trying to lock in on the hard cam, but the referee was in the way. Which WWE won't necessarily be happy about, but I mean, I get it. Just be as close as you can, you know. Declan says, does the ring look smaller? Not to me, no, but I think of all the ads on it, with all the ads on it and everything, it might well do. There should be no chance that Ripley is able to beat both Roxanne and Raquel. So yeah, she does need the support of Io Sky, which is of course feeding the heel turn for Asuka and Kairi Sane. Io's just too nice, that's the problem. Too nice. The thing is, if Asuka and Kairi Sane actually watched WWE Raw, they would know that what's happening right now is that the favour is being returned, now they're even, and we're all moving on. Declan says, where is the LED on the post? Looks like it might not have travelled. Interesting, good spot. Sean says, when a wrestler turns face or heel, are they told to wrestle that style? No, but they might choose to. They might make the choice to. Carmella, for example, when she was the champion, she wrestled heel style, and then in the last 2 months, after she'd already been told when she'd be losing the title, she changed to face style, which I think was the right call. She was able to add a bit more to her arsenal. Alexa Bliss has historically worked heel style so often that people actually think she can't wrestle. There's Seth Rollins. They've spread out the big names very nicely here. Surprised we still haven't seen Bron, considering he's in the main event. Ishii says, do you see Nikki Cross getting the US title? Not sure. I know there's been the temptation, but it might actually be that she's not going after Julia. She's appeared behind quite a few people. Maybe it's a Mia Yim feud. Or at least that's how she re-establishes herself in a feud with someone like Mia Yim. There's Bron. Why does he look unhappy? Oh, okay. Little smile. I think he's trying to look intense, but he actually just looks a bit sad. Noob says, I wonder if we're getting more tension between Asuka and Io backstage after the match. I suspect they might run into each other. This might be the day Asuka throws a few punches. I guess that both of them have got new merch. We've got Fear the Spear as well. Didn't say a word. It just looks like he's had a bad day. Man needs a hug. I'm not going to hug him. Fear the Spear. Let's take the opportunity, while they're recapping the show, to see what other news has been in the headlines and react to it, because we're about to go into Finn Balor versus AJ Styles. After this, I think it must be the main event, because you know how they like to do a rundown. So let's have a look. Yes, we are talking from August 23rd about the Hurt Syndicate. Oh, and then and then before that it was the Jericho WWE return news, which is not real. Just is not real. So what have we got here? We start with the Wrestling Observer again. Wrestling Observer says there are people in AEW who are under the belief that Chris Jericho is leaving the promotion when his contract expires at the end of the year, and that he will start in WWE as a Royal Rumble surprise in Saudi Arabia. Now, I'm not going to rule out the possibility that Chris Jericho makes a WWE appearance. However, the WWE have no intention of signing Chris Jericho to any particular lucrative deal, and they're just not particularly interested in the guy. However, Fightful Select says many people in WWE have no clue if Jericho's AEW contract is actually ticking down right now, or if it's frozen and time can be added to the end of it. I'd also argue that they don't care. The Observer notes that WWE had the following 3 title matches internally listed for Clash in Paris as of August 15th. Becky Lynch versus Nikki Bella, Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre, and Solo Sikoa versus Sami Zayn. I would imagine we're still going to get Becky Lynch versus Nikki Bella, already announced tonight, and Cody Rhodes versus Drew, but we'll not see Solo Sikoa versus Sami Zayn. I expect the World Heavyweight Championship Fatal 4-Way to main event. Per Wrestling Observer, AEW has planned for a while to book a tag team title match of FTR versus Adam Copeland and Christian Cage at All Out. However, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin weren't up for losing to FTR. AEW considered 2 ways to get around that problem in order to put the tag belts on FTR. The first idea was to do a 3-way, and the other idea was to have Benjamin do an injury angle. I will reiterate what has been said previously. I have never heard anything about the Hurt Syndicate refusing to lose. And in fact, news has been reported constantly that they refuse to lose, and it just isn't true. Fightful says there were people in AEW who were concerned about Will Ospreay's neck and hoping he wouldn't wrestle at Forbidden Door. It sounds like Ospreay went into July's All-In event knowing they had to take time off soon, which changed some of their plans. On his podcast, Eric Bischoff said there are plans for Real American Freestyle Wrestling, so RAF, to launch a live 2-hour weekly show starting in early 2026. Eric Bischoff is not going to be a big name in the wrestling scene. He's actually recognised that. And they refer to it as F4W Online. So Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer indicates that one reason why Saturday night's main event will now air exclusively on Peacock is because the NBC numbers are far lower for the show than anyone expected. People do not care about Saturday night main event. I don't care about Saturday night main event. And let's be honest, you don't really care about Saturday night main event. This could be great. However, I don't think the WWE are going to give it a chance to be great. I think this match is going to end up being annoyingly brief and going kind of nowhere. Change the title again. AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. It does feel like Raw's now winding down. There's big gaps between the matches. And I think they know they're hyping the main event. I know we're going to see Jey Uso soon. He's going to start hyping everything up for the main event. I haven't got around to watching the second season of Wednesday yet. Despite everyone being broken, Newcastle have just scored a second goal. 2-2. Liverpool's defence is terrible. Okay, I just want to repeat, as regards Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, it is getting a bit sexy. As expected, Asuka's laying into her a bit. And at this point, we're just being very loud. I don't love the idea that stop being friends with someone because reasons. It's very coercive. Kyrie's saying he's not going to side with you, come on. It's all very unnecessary. Walk away. It's not worth it. Is she one day is a very, 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 very open sentence. What you're asking me is, could something happen that might happen or might not happen? There's no way I can respond to that, and you know it. Sean says, how would we say Asuka's booking has been since her return? She hasn't wrestled a lot of matches. Still a bit worried about her. Same with Kairi saying, they're still a bit worried about her as well. So there hasn't been a lot of wrestling. And when you're not wrestling, your booking always tends to be kind of awkward. There's not enough actually happening. A lot of talking, not a lot of doing. AJ Styles chance. Balor and AJ getting into it pretty quickly. I feel that was quite reductive from Corey Graves. All a dream match garbage. Used to be I'd get very excited about the prospect of former Bullet Club leaders going at it. Also, I've got to say, AJ Styles seems to get hairier every day. She's like, there's a hairy man. Like, he chooses that hair. Of reference to Ash by Elegance. Formerly known as Dana Brooke. WWE officially pushing Dana Brooke harder in TNA than she's ever been pushed in WWE. Because they made a passing reference to her, and yes, that's harder booking. I kind of hope this match just keeps going and they get rid of the main event. They're not going to. Would be funny though. Sean says, I hope we get AJ Styles versus John Cena before the tour ends. It doesn't look like that one's going to happen. Cena's running low on dates, and AJ Styles is simply not in the right place to make it happen. Especially when you consider we've got Logan Paul, which is one of the dates. We're now down to single figures for John Cena, and he also needs to push the Brock Lesnar feud. When you factor in everything going on with Brock Lesnar, I'd be surprised if he has more than maybe 6 dates left. And he has to build a feud against his final opponent, whomever that might be. If there's a match planned for Adam Copeland, I reckon John Cena might not even be there for it until the actual match itself. I don't love it when the commentary team are talking about other people. I get why they're doing it. I get that they're trying to push AAA. I get that they're trying to push Dominic. But it tells you that it's just not that exciting a match. If the actual announced team aren't focused on your match, how are fans going to get invested in it? Okay, so it is a relatively small arena. Michael Cole just saying there's over 11,000. For WWE, that's actually not that great anymore. Ishii suggests John Cena versus Gunter. Gunter is out at the moment. I certainly think that could be a way to pass the torch. And I do think John Cena is going to be passing the torch to someone. I just don't know who. And especially if you factor in, if he does lose to Brock Lesnar, if he loses to Brock Lesnar, then he's got about 6 days left and he's on a losing streak. Now, it's only a losing streak of 1, but he's not exactly giving someone the rub in the same way anymore. Sean says, do you see Tiffany reigning for a year? It doesn't take that much more. She's not far away already. Ishii, I agree. I do think Jacob should be the one. I'm also a little disappointed. It looks like we're not going to get a Cena-Roman match again. I feel like that should have been an obvious, easy win for them to make happen. Bit of a rest hold. We've just gone into a commercial. It's slow. The crowd aren't exactly hyped up for this. It's Finn Balor versus AJ Styles. This should be huge, but the star has fallen. Finn Balor, AJ Styles, not as exciting as they once were. And I think this is a danger of being a veteran. You do just sort of become reliable. You become background. You become set dressing. And as part of that, you become kind of forgotten. WWE don't put the focus on you. The fans aren't really behind you. And you end up with incredibly talented people who just aren't that exciting anymore. Maybe their style is falling out of favour. This is why companies like AEW, companies like TNA are so vital that they stay away from WWE. Someone like AJ Styles, let's say he goes to AEW, even for just a year. He has a huge impact there. Huge impact. He's able to do things that no one there can do, and he's able to do it in a new environment, in a new atmosphere. Just basically guaranteeing a new audience who aren't already kind of sick of him. And it works the other way as well. If Jon Moxley came to WWE now, nobody would be looking at him and saying, oh, that's Dean Ambrose. Because it isn't. The man's established. The man's vital. He's just a different creature. That sort of movement is a wonderful thing. And it means that people stay fresh. There are certain wrestlers, I look at Randy Orton, injuries have kept him exciting. Limited dates have kept him exciting. And I get why wrestlers, as they age and develop, go towards limited dates. I think Becky Lynch's break was very good for her. I think the injuries that Seth Rollins has had has kept him interesting as well. But these things do take time. And I do think the day will come when a name like Seth Rollins, a name like Becky Lynch, just kind of need to either step away for a bit or step away entirely. I don't think Finn Balor should have signed that last contract. I also look at someone like Kevin Owens, who is still considered a big deal, but he's nowhere near championships. He's nowhere near big moments. Fair side, very fair. And I would argue that maybe Kevin Owens made the wrong call. Ultimately, I don't know. I can't sit here and say I've got all the answers. I think there's a lot of life in the old dog, as it were. I just don't necessarily think the WWE is a place for them. We have now got our Jey Uso hype package. Kevin says, what about Sami Zayn? Sami Zayn, I think there's still a lot to do, primarily because there was a huge point in time when he just wasn't really doing much. I'm looking at that time in the Bloodline was a complete refresh for him. The feud of Gunter and the Intercontinental Championship run was a complete refresh for him. They've tried to advance Sami, and there is still scope for him to be a World Heavyweight Champion. I don't think the idea of him versus Solo is very exciting. I think in that manner, he might have reached that limit. I think Sami Zayn was right to sign the new deal. I don't necessarily think he'll be right to sign the next deal. That's how I would say it. So I said, you become a utility man. I'm going to make every post about football tonight, and why not? JD says, no way, a Tom live for Raw, been a minute. It has. Raw was live a little earlier in the day. Welcome, JJ. And it looks like we'll be doing one for SmackDown as well. Rarity. Bailey says, what about Natty? Natalya, unfortunately, because she started a lot before a lot of these women, I think she's been there for a long time. Sean is asking about Charlotte or Alexa. Charlotte, I would say, is probably at times going to be that. But I think the fact that she's currently got a face turn that's working has given some fresh blood to it, to the character. Bear with. She was very limited in what she could do. Ooh, Grayson Waller. She was very limited in what she could do as a heel, but she's another one who's had long periods of time out, and sometimes quite recently. Tom, I'm Tom. Is she? I'm not really sure what's happening there. I'm surprised that you're not already subscribed. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, member of the crowd. Oh no, it's not a member of the crowd. I thought a member of the crowd was throwing stuff at Kofi Kingston. It's actually Grayson Waller. I was wondering why Kofi was so comfortable with it. Liverpool just scored, and that's going to be a heartbreaker. Is that Rio? That is a 16-year-old. Not only that, but I'm pretty sure Salah sold a dummy because he... Sorry. I get excited. I don't mind a SmackDown, but I would definitely agree that Raw is by far the superior show. I do worry about Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. They're good, but I think they're also in that utility section we've been talking about. They're also kind of stuck, kind of trapped. They've done everything. There's nothing more they can do. As much as I think it's been time for a long time for Xavier Woods to have the singles run, Kofi Mania was the last hurrah of the New Day. I would also say that Big E's championship run came too little too late. Jay, you're certainly allowed to ask it. I don't really have that information. The videos have been sent to me by Ed in Discord, but as I've been live, I haven't been able to check them out. So I will be looking into that, but at the moment, I unfortunately do not have a response for you. Still time for Newcastle to get back into it. Sean said, do you think Austin Theory will return after his injury? Well, yeah. He's still on a WWE contract. I don't see a world in which he just vanishes completely. I think maybe the New Day need to consider their options when the next time comes for a contract deal. All I want to say. All I want to say. Oh, is she? Thank you. It did pop up that there was one, but I can't see it. But I can see that your name has just gone green. So you've clearly just become a channel member. So I'm sorry to say, for some reason it's not come through. I can't see it, but I can see that your name's gone green. So clearly, it's happened. Thank you very kindly. I appreciate you for that. Welcome to the channel membership section. There's a few videos there that you can't see on the main channel. Some of them are incredibly silly. Some of them are at least somewhat informative, but yeah, you've gone green. Thank you very kindly, Ishii. Appreciate you for that. Raw is winding down now, and you can tell. We're now getting another Bayley segment. She looks scared. Ooh, Kevin says one more. What about The Miz? Which is, again, a fair question. I think The Miz has been there for a long time. He does benefit newer wrestlers. And he's a veteran who helps in the locker rooms and the like. He's been there forever. The WWE know that. Because the WWE know that, they don't oversaturate him. There's also an argument to be made that Bayley's been there for a while, to be fair. Jay says, I feel like WWE should have built up a Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns at Survivor Series in 2021. Looked like they were building to that anyway, when Big E should have cashed in there. They got real awkward when it came to the Bobby Lashley Roman Reigns stuff. They had 2 matches back to back, one on a PLE which Bobby Lashley won, and then one which wasn't, which Roman Reigns won. And then they acted like Bobby Lashley never beat him. So what was the point? All very silly. Fair enough, Ed. You have a good time, man. I shall see you soon. Not that I can see Ishii. We do have a box about chat revenue, which is currently showing 0, no donations. So not that that the donation has not come through. The channel membership has. The donation has not. Do you guys agree with me with this though? This feels why it's 6. It's kicking off after the game. Very angry Dan Burn. A very tall and very angry Dan Burn. Meanwhile, bless him, Watu Endo just walking through like, yeah, what's going on? Becky, I don't go that far, Declan. I think with Becky, she's been working with younger talent, and like she had the run in NXT. Because of that, it's kept her fresh. We're not just seeing Becky versus Charlotte, Becky versus Charlotte, Becky versus Charlotte, Becky versus Charlotte. We're not just seeing that. There was a time when we were, and it got bad. Ross says, just came in, Thomas was watching the game. What's the Stephanie Vaquer situation? Opportunities are heading her way. WWE considering opponents. She is, in my eyes, the most likely next women's champion. Also, I was watching the game myself. Been watching it the whole time. It's been fun. It's been insane. It's been difficult, but it's been fun. Jay says, I'm pretty sure they did a Roman versus Bobby versus Big E match on a random episode of Raw, and Roman pinned Lashley. It was so random. It was a weird position. And we have a confirmed Intercontinental Championship match. Sean, I've answered 2 of those already. The only one I haven't answered is Naomi. She has taken time away. She was reborn in TNA. She's benefited from exactly what I'm talking about. So the next Intercontinental Championship match will be on Raw, not on Clash. But it will still be in France. We'll see what happens, Declan. I don't, but we'll see what happens. Well, they're running through the Clash in Paris card now. So we have Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed. I would imagine that's going to open the show. I still imagine we're going to see Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre, but that'll probably actually last a little longer. Sheamus takes on Rusev in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, which I'm not convinced by the concept. So we've got Roman versus Bronson Reed. We've got Sheamus versus Rusev. We've got John Cena versus Logan Paul. We've got Becky Lynch versus Nikki Bella. That's 4. Our only women's match so far. And we already know about the Fatal 4-Way. That's 5. Triple H typically likes his 5 matches. So we might not get that WWE Championship match. John Cena might have gazumped it. Ishii, once again, no sign of any donation has come through on this side. He's still showing a 0. Not sure why. Roman Reigns picking a fight with Bron Breakker. Bron Breakker's hurt, isn't he? I feel like Bron Breakker's hurt or sick or something. And now LA Knight beating him down. See, I thought that was potentially a write-off. Ishii, I'm not in charge of YouTube. I can't answer that question, unfortunately. Sean says, have you liked how Mariah May has been booked since coming to WWE? I don't watch NXT regularly, so I can't really respond to that. Okay, so Bron Breakker's out into the match of LA Knight. Ross says, Mercedes coming back as money would work. I'm a fan of hers, but I don't really care about all the belts. Toni Storm is the best in AEW. And that is another example, I feel, of the veterans leaving, being refreshed, and possibly coming back stronger. I mean, it worked for Jeff Jarrett. Imagine making that reference in 2025. Imagine making that reference in 2025. Huh. Declan says, I see Nikki winning the IC so Becky can win the Women's World Championship, then Stephanie versus Becky at WrestleMania. Declan, I'm fully aware your opinion is always that Becky should be champ, Becky should be champ, Becky should be champ, Becky should be champ. So lovely as that is, I can predict, I feel, what you're going to go for. I'm surprised you have a losing and not going for Becky 2 belts again. Don't know. Oh, didn't know that, Si. So YouTube has 3 options in the tag at the top. There is top chat, where it will remove anything it considers spam. There is live chat, which is everything. All messages are visible. It literally says all messages are visible. That's what I stay in. And then you've got fan funding, which is stuff like donations. I've been going into there to check whether things have been coming through from Ishii, and they haven't been. I try and keep it on live chat, so if anything has been missing, I'm not going to apologise, it's not my fault, but hopefully I've still caught everyone's responses. Rick answers predictions for the Raw Women's title. Stephanie Vaca. I do think we're going to get something involving Stephanie versus Io. Io will have the championship cost her by Asuka, and Stephanie will be the next Women's World Champion. Been saying that one for a while, and I very much stand by it. WWE at the moment are still trying to work out a few kinks in that particular plan, but I don't think it's going to take them too long to do so. LA Knight so far has just absolutely demolished Bron Breakker. Now, Roman Reigns can earn himself a mention there, and why the hell not, because he definitely did some favours. But wow, bear with me, I'm going to sneeze again. One day I'm actually going to sneeze and y'all are not going to know what to do yourselves. Appreciate that, Ishii. Sai says, there haven't been any donations, it would show in the XP points at the top. Yes, it would. Fair shout. 225 XP at the moment is Sean Cena. Bailey and Sai both on 200. I need to click on this more often. Like, I never click on it. Oof. So there are 25 people who've chatted. We have people on 25 who I think have posted one thing. Ooh, and we have like... Will has not posted anything, but I'm guessing his 25 XP is a like? Because you do get XP for likes. Interesting. So at the moment, Sean is at the top with 225. We have 2 at 200, 2 at 175, and then 4 at 150. It's interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Declan. Thank you, Ishii. Sean says, you don't think Stephanie Vaca versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania for the women's IC title anymore? Not anymore, no. I definitely was still leaning that way. But it looks like WWE have responded to the crowd reactions. Bailey is 225 XP. Now, there is a top fans thing in the top right of the live chat. If you click on that, In fact, Bailey, you've just become the number one. You've just taken the crown because you asked that question. Interesting, isn't it? So for every time you comment something, every like, every donation, things like that, that does result in XP, which encourages more engagement. That's why YouTube is doing it. Sai says, I have a feeling this match is writing Breaker out for a while. Quite possibly. He doesn't seem comfortable. I know he's got his knees strapped up. I know he had, in fact, he's openly got his knees strapped up now. And in the last match, he tweaked an already existing knee injury. Ross, I've just found this myself. If you're not in the US, you actually don't get ads. I only found this out myself today. You actually don't get ads. You get more Raw. The show just keeps going. Yeah, Marcel and Ed had to sort of clue me in. Oh, we have people chat rating. I don't actually think chat rate adds XP. I think the XP system thinks of chat rate as spam because it's a comment you've already made. So it doesn't count towards it. By all means, ring the changes, do your thing, see how it goes. Sean says engagement is always a good thing. Yeah, and that's helped Sean keep his position. So I don't think that system rewards chat rate, but we have immediately gone up to 20 on the chat rate. So thank you very much, guys, for that. If you want to find like new and interesting ways to promote chat rate, you're obviously welcome to. If you guys want to get competitive with the XP, you are very welcome to. It's only going to help me if you get competitive. It's funny because Bron Breakker has a genuine knee injury. You wouldn't think it given what just happened. And suddenly he's gone very vocal. It's like he's woken up. Correct, Ishi. That is how it works. I need to change the title. The main event. Bron Breakker versus LA Knight. And it'll be our last one of the show, so I'm just going to stick watch party at the end so nobody gets confused and thinks that we are anything else. Blue says 10 minutes of stoppage time. Really, Tom? I mean, 11 in the end. 11 in the end. I don't know, but there were a lot of scraps. I was watching it while also watching this, so I wasn't 100% au fait on what was actually happening. But yeah, seemed a bit insane. Ishi says you... again, Ishi, I can't answer that question. I'm guessing because the donations didn't happen, it gave you your money back. Declan says, favourite ice cream? I like a honeycomb, I like a toffee, I like a caramel. Basically, if it's any sort of burnt yellow, you've got my attention. I'm not big on sugar. I like a crisp. I know where that's going, so I'm going to be careful saying it, but as a general rule, when it comes to treats and snacks, I like a crisp. Marcel, quite possibly, while they're on the tour and the shows are happening earlier, there doesn't seem much point hosting a spoiler warning. I mean, one of the main reasons I would say that is because I'm live right now and we have not exactly got the spoiler warning crowd in. So yeah, we might just do this. Yes, Ishi, there is Clash in Paris on Sunday. Clash in Paris on Sunday, isn't it? I've checked this like 5 times. Sunday. So we will be live for Clash in Paris, and we may also be live for some more Raw/SmackDown as need be. It's not Ishi. Just checked. Blue says, what exactly is a crisp to an American like me? A potato chip. We want tables, chance? They want to go hardcore. Yeah, good old-fashioned potato chip. Over here we call them crisps. Because we call chips fries. Oh, blue. We have spoken about this till we're blue in the face, and you know what? I'm still happy to talk about it. There are some great crisp flavours. I'm a very classic salt and vinegar guy. Declan, you disgust me. No, Rickan, I don't expect Jericho in the Rumble, but I did discuss this a little earlier. Yeah, I'm a very classic salt and vinegar guy, though I do like a prawn cocktail, despite the fact that I hate prawns. I have certain phobias, right? I think we all do. We all have our own phobias. For me, it's things with too many legs. It's the way things move. I don't react to spiders, but when they start moving, it still gives me a little bit of the willies, as it were, you know? It still unsettles me. So, when things move like that, centipedes are my worst goddamn nightmare. If I was in one of these jungle TV shows, or if I was on Traitors, fine with worms, fine with spiders. Even when they're moving, I can handle it. You put a centipede anywhere near me, I'm out. If it undulates, you know, where its body contracts and then expands to move, I don't want it. I don't want it near me. I don't know how I got onto this. I do not know how I got onto this. But I did. And now I'm scaring myself. I've worked it out. To bring it back onto the topic, prawns. They don't necessarily, or shrimp as they are in the US. The way the legs work, I still have nightmares where I eat one and then somehow it reforms in my stomach and it crawls back out of my neck. I got really real with you guys there and I kind of regret it. So I hope you treat this delicately and we can get back to a nice fun talk about crisps. Because Ross's favourite is a flame grilled steak McCoy's. And you know what? McCoy's are a fantastic thing. McCoy's also do a nice chili flavour. I like me some chili. That in a crisp is a wonderful thing. They also, of course, do your classic salt and vinegar that I love so much. But they add some malt in it because why not? Salt and malt vinegar. Because it's not enough to say salt and vinegar. Declan likes a barbecue flavour crisp. Salt and vinegar Pringles, also a wonderful thing. Superior Pringle for me. This match is so exciting. Blue, right, absolutely. Sean, I'm not really a seafood guy. I don't know if my previous conversation gave that away. I'm not a seafood guy. Just not there for it. I'll occasionally have a fish. But by and large, if I have a choice, it'll be sausage in my mouth. I struggle with LA Knight in ring. He doesn't have the speed, the explosiveness of Bron Breakker. He doesn't have the high impact. It's hard to say what his style is. He's a bit of a Randy Orton in that he's very classical. He's added a bit more to his arsenal over time. I don't think he does enough. And I don't think he moves quickly enough. I also, unfortunately, don't think he's going to improve. I think what we have now is all we'll ever have. Ross has agreed on the Mexican chili. Any Pringles work. I wouldn't say any. I'm not really a cheese and onion guy. Bailey says, unfortunately, LA Knight is at the age where he's less effective in the ring. Then what they should do is turn him heel. Because then you can have the heel offense and you don't really need to worry anymore. I do feel the last half hour or so is the only point at which Raw's dragged. There's been very good stuff, but there's also been very slow moments. The opening promo wasn't particularly impactful. I didn't love everything with Becky and Nikki. In fact, promos in general have kind of sucked this week. But again, it's not WWE that books the go-home show, it's the editing team. And I feel that's why the promos have kind of sucked. So it says Breakker at 50% is carrying the veteran through this match. That is kind of what I think is happening, yes. Yes, Declan, and a technical issue in the JD McDonagh match earlier. Sean likes a sour cream and onion, which I don't mind. Funnily enough, I actually quite like a cheese and onion sandwich. And also, as someone with lactose intolerance, I probably shouldn't. Blue says the problem with Knight is him being a heel on the mic will probably get him cheered even more. That is both fair and kind of what I'm going for. He's got the catchphrase, but there's a lot of slow motion. He also, this is going to sound weird, he doesn't stand up quick enough. When he goes down, it takes him a minute. Bailey says the match just isn't that interesting when compared to Crisp's talk. And yeah, we have this Crisp talk so often. We're getting to a point now where I'm going to do a show and just buy like 15 bags of crisps and just rate crisps. Which I don't feel is going to be that exciting, but for some reason it's what people seem to want. You got to give the people what they want. Ross says, I don't like onion but love cheese and onion crisps. It's a weird one. I get that. I like red onion. I cook with a lot of red onion. As a general rule, I always make sure to have onions and peppers in the house. Because if you've got onions, peppers, maybe a tin of tomatoes, there's nothing you can't do. At some point, I'm going to want to make sweet and sour chicken, actually. Ooh, Bailey. Doritos Chili Heatwave, I think need pointing out. They're a wonderful, wonderful concept. I also like the classic. And I don't mean like cool original Doritos, that's ranch flavour. Just a nice, well-salted tortilla chip goes a long way for me. I get salt cravings sometimes. It's the only time I ever eat McDonald's. I just get salt cravings. And a nicely salted tortilla chip goes a long way. Blue says, Tom, is Cena the last non-badass babyface that got truly over for the men? Roman and Seth needed the edge. They did need the edge, it's true. Daniel Bryan? Probably Daniel Bryan. Well, Sai, the Mastermind segment sort of spoke for itself. Sean says, I don't like raisins but love Raisin Bran. Interesting. There are things you can just kind of ignore. Decent superplex from LA Knight. He once again did not get up very quickly. Very confused as to what you've just said, Blue. And here comes Seth to provide the distraction and to make sure LA Knight loses the match. Bron Breakker hasn't done much other than get beat. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, sorry. Blue, I lost track of what I was saying. When you say non-badass, I don't think there's any more obvious non-badass than Daniel Bryan. Oh, no, sorry, you make fair points. Sami Zayn, Kofi Kingston. Yeah. I would argue it took Kofi too long, but that's certainly not his fault. I would also argue, to be fair, when it comes to Sami Zayn, for me, the hottest he has ever been, was when he was in the Bloodline as a heel. Declan, no, Drew's badass. That's just, like, definitive of him. That is a win for Bron Breakker, somehow. He does not look okay. He looks genuinely quite hurt. Again, Rhea's rise to fame as a heel, Sean. Judgment Day. Yeah. Blue says quite rightly, Kofi had to go through the heel stuff, same with Sami. With that, if that's the case, then so too did Daniel Bryan. You had to say no before you could say yes. Which is not a phrase I ever want to say again. And honestly, I feel kind of dirty. Jey Uso is walking very, very slowly towards the ring. Roman Reigns, to my knowledge, is being kicked out, but there still could be a Bronson Reed here, which then allows CM Punk to get involved. This doesn't feel like the end of a show. Sean says, is Becky a good shout? Difficult. Okay, on a couple of levels. Firstly, I do think the badass thing still works for Becky. And secondly, the heel turn is what made her. The WWE get a lot of shit for turning Becky heel, but if they didn't do that, we would not have this Becky Lynch. We wouldn't. The man was a heel. The man was a heel that the fans simply refused to boo. That's what it was. We've gone very slow motion here. They must be waiting for CM Punk. They're just teasing the fans. Bron Breakker is struggling to stand. And here comes Punk. They were just teasing him. Seth Rollins really can't get away from this guy. He just cannot get away from him. Bron Breakker got down off that ring apron so delicately. He's not okay. Why do you keep putting him in matches? He's moving slow motion. So I says, did they grease the aisle? Nobody wants to run. Everyone just wants their pop. Oh, they're singing Punk's thing. That was quite fun. I wish I'd acknowledged that. Imagine jumping the ring at that age. Ridiculous. Paul Heyman just slowly walking away, still holding the championship, still in control. I do like that they pivoted Heyman to Seth and they didn't change anything about him. Didn't change a single thing. Sean says, can't say Alexa either. Her popularity came as a heel. Absolutely did. She was an incredibly over heel, but she was a heel nonetheless. Oh, that's a chant. What a chant that is. LA Knight's been a bit of a bitch right now. I feel like we're going to pivot into Punk versus LA Knight after this, and I do kind of think there might be an LA Knight heel turn coming. I wouldn't hate it. I did mention earlier, I think he needs a refresh. I swear there's a little kiss there. This is all very silly and overdramatic. Leave it there. Leave it there. Don't have Punk and Jay fighting. Leave it there. Oh, okay. Ah, I didn't love that. That was the wrong call. That's going to turn some people. So, good Raw. Solid. I've certainly watched some much worse ones. I was there when we had the Raw after WrestleMania where nothing happened and Vince McMahon just basically walked in and said, you know what, we're getting rid of the whole damn thing. Knowing that that happened, I will never call a Raw this good bad ever again. That's WWE Raw. It's been quite nice to have a watch party again. It's also been quite nice that it hasn't been the full 3 hours. Would love it if it was 2, but we are where we are. I had fun. Hopefully you guys did as well. I'm going to wrap up there and say thank you very kindly. And I hope you've all had a good night. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And we'll see you all very soon.